In the past 12 months at my agency, we've worked with 7 and 8 figure brands, and we've looked at hundreds of pages, we've run countless split tests, and we've looked at exactly what works and what doesn't. Today, I want to show you, after analyzing 500 plus to keep it conservative, e-commerce product pages, here is what actually converts. So what we'll cover in this video will be works versus doesn't work on PDP. So we're going to look at 5 key sections you need to take care of the most. Then we're going to look at a few real brand examples, so good versus bad iterations by the biggest brands in the e-com space and who are doing it right and are actually testing these changes like what I'm about to show you here. And 3, some implementation steps and how you can find the key sections to test on your brand's PDP. But first, before starting, you can get more in-depth CRO and their fun insights by subscribing to the CRO Letter and getting my 60 plus page e-commerce CRO guide in your inbox. You'll find the first link in the description to do that if you want the guide in your inbox. But then let's start first with number 1 in works doesn't work, which is above the fold. There's clearly much more importance in the above the fold than any other section in the page, since it's what everyone is going to see on the page when they land. Everyone is going to see above the fold 100% of the traffic. So that's what we're going to focus on first, and then we're going to look at 4 other very important sections. So on the above the fold, what works versus what doesn't work is obviously works is clear value proposition. You need to make sure you have that in your above the fold, and you don't need to have a lot of information above the fold. The above the fold must be focused on actions. You need to focus it on the buy box, on your call to actions, but you need to have also a clear value proposition on your above the fold to make it sure that people understand what the product is for. Then you need to have a pain / problem focus if applicable. This is obviously not applicable to every niche. This is mostly about healthcare nutrition. In this case, if applicable, you can focus on a pain or problem in the above the fold, and you can use the product images to do that. As I mentioned before, we don't want to have too much information above the fold. That's what under the fold is reserved for. But you need to make sure that the problem is clear, solution mechanism to the problem is clear, and then you have a few benefits in a bullet point fashion above the fold. Especially social proof, try to have at least 2 types of social proof. You can have the classics, you can have the reviews count, you can have the average stars, you can have a single piece of social proof that's related to a guarantee, for example, or to a certain benefit above the fold. You can have magazine logos, or you can have stuff like that in your above the fold. I would try to have at least 2 types, just to have 2 different things above the fold, and then to also signal much more trust and much more authority over the customer. Then, as you can see here, I've listed a few of them: review summary, trust pages, and maybe a guarantee near the call to action. If you can have also that would also help a lot with click-through rate to cart and then also checkout page. Then visual hierarchy. Image colors are roughly 40% of the space. A major error I see always brands doing, and then I always mention this when I do live audits, as you've seen on my channel multiple times, is how much space the image carousel takes. There's some brands that have on their product page the carousel takes 60-70% of the pages, such wastes too much space for it to do what it's supposed to do, and so that's also very important. So on the visual hierarchy side for product pages, you would have the image carousel at the top. Then you would have the few USPs I mentioned before in a bullet list fashion. 3 to 4 points is enough. Then you have the buy box with everything included there, so the offer explained, your actual offer. So if there's subscriptions, if there's bundles, if there's cross-sells, upsells, stuff like that, all of the stuff included in the buy box. And then one clear CTA, which is 99.9% of the time will be the add to cart. So that's also very important. What doesn't work on above the fold, and this is what we have seen from running countless tests for many different brands in many different niches. So you can take this obviously with a pinch of salt. This is what we've seen with more than 100 split tests, hundreds and hundreds of split tests we've ran. Huge product galleries taking more than 50% of the space available. They turn off the customers most of the time. So try to keep, as I mentioned before, the space around 40% of the page. 0 social proof review elements to gain trust from customers is obviously a very big point. And not just that, not just 0 social proof or review elements, but also misplaced or misused social proof and review elements. And one of the most misused one is the stars, so the average rating. In some brands, obviously, the standard color for that would be yellow and stuff like that. So color is not obviously the most important thing about it, but if you use the actual yellow or the color in general brands use, you attract much more attention. It's just it pops much more on the page. So use that element properly. Then you have multiple competing call to actions. As I mentioned before, the main goal of a PDP is one and one only: add to cart. So that's very, very important. Don't have multiple CTAs, don't redirect people to other pages, because it's usually the product page is where you want the focus of the customer to be on, because that's where they actually can add the product to the cart, go forward to the checkout page, and then actually complete the purchase. So once you get your traffic or your customers on your product page, try not redirecting them to other pages or other points in the store. And then no clear USPs or unique mechanism explanation for pain problem related products. Again, if you can have those 3-4 bullet points that like point a clear solution to a problem or a pain the customer is experiencing, that would help a lot with keeping people on the page, actually not making them bounce off the page. Then let's go with the second point here in works doesn't work. Copy and information, obviously super important. Not as important as, for example, on other types of pages like advertorials, listicles, or offer pages or sales pages. Product pages are usually what we've seen. They need to be more focused on usability, on quickness, or like action, on getting people actually forward with the purchase. While on advertorials, listicles, and those types of landers, you need to actually focus, like the main focus is copy and how you angle the product or the mechanism to the customer. So it's still very important, just not as important as with advertorials, listicles, and sales offer pages. So what works with copy information? You need to focus on progressive disclosure. As I mentioned before, above the fold is made for actions. Above the fold, you have those USPs, you have those bullet points for the main benefits. Then progressively under the fold, you expand on that information, obviously. So above the fold, use only one-off sentences with the most important info, and under the fold, expand with targeted sections and visuals. The formatting needs to be short paragraphs. And you have to use bullet points, lists, and tables. This is obviously for both above the fold and under the fold. Try to not have walls of text, which we are going to look at in the doesn't work section. Obviously, they are very hard to read, they are hard to scan, they have no structure at all. And from what we've seen, heat map, user recordings, scroll maps, and stuff like that, people just usually completely scroll to walls of text if they notice that there is one. So try to avoid that and only have one heading per section, so you have a clear idea for every section you're going to have on the page. Then obviously try to use a feature to benefit framework. You need to like make the customer understand and relate to what it means to use your product, why it matters, and how it helps the customer in the first place. If you have a feature only focus, as you can see, I've put that in the doesn't work section. This is not obviously like applicable for every single niche. There are some niches where the products are super technical, so you need to actually list and be very technical with the features and what the product actually provides, but try to always connect it to something that the customer experiences from that. And I'm going to show you an example of this if you're selling especially very technical products, for example like technical clothing or stuff like that. I'm going to show an example of how to connect those technical aspects or features to actual things that the customer can feel and experience from the product. And obviously missing social validation, this also works in the copy. So if you can mention validation points, social proof points in your copy, that also will help you with the click-through rate and with the add to carts on your product page. Then for works versus doesn't work, number 3, we have the buy box, obviously very important. What works is clear sequential variations hierarchy. If you have products that have quite a lot of variations, and for example what I can think of here is clothing, the main example I can think of is obviously you have colors, you have sizes, you have maybe different things for different types of clothing you sell. So you need to have a clear sequential variation hierarchy, starting from the most important to the least important in the list. They need to be laid out well. You need to have feedback on interactions. This is something that a lot of brands get very wrong in their buy boxes. If you have selections, if you have variations, variant selectors and stuff like that, you need to make sure that the feedback when they interact with the buy box is clearly visible. So if they select something, then that is reflected actually. There are a lot of brands and a lot of PDPs I've seen where that is not reflected. When you click on something, it just doesn't seem like you've clicked on it, and it doesn't like really make you understand and get that dopamine response from clicking on things and just changing stuff around. So make sure the feedback and interaction is super on point. Most of the times it's just as easy as like having some borders or stuff like that, some colored borders on the selections that the users make. So make sure that is on point. Offer needs to be explained super well in the buy box. Obviously that's where you actually sell the product to the customer, so you need to explain your offer super well, besides doing it already in your copy and in all of your branding. So if there is discounts, if there is gifts included, if there is a bundles, if possibility, if there is guarantees with your offer, you need to include all of that in your buy box to make sure the offer is super clear to the customer. You can obviously use price anchoring here. So if your offer includes some kind of like different pricing styles, pricing methods, obviously you can use per unit pricing, you can use compare at pricing. You need to showcase definitely the savings. A lot of brands use the percentage when they're advertising savings or they have savings offer running. Doing that also in absolute numbers would help. It helps visualize easier the savings, especially if the numbers are like hard to run off the top of like customers' mind. So having that also a number would help with perceiving like the quality of the offer you're running. Then obviously one call to action, I already mentioned that in the above the fold section, but it's important to mention it again. Make it high contrast and make it a clear next step. And on the PDP, 99.9% of cases will be add to cart, but it's very important still to mention. What doesn't work in the buy box? Too many variant options causes decision paralysis. So this is obviously something that you have to work around based on the niche. There are some products and some niches where you just have the need to have these many variants because this is just the product, it's the nature of the product, stuff like that. If you have that problem where there's just too many things, try to structure it properly, at least visually. It will help with decision paralysis, or at least like have some kind of filtering or some kind of things where the customer can restrict the options they have available based on their interests or what they need. This will help also with click-through rate and with getting people actually to make a purchase decision. So try to get around that if you have too many variants. Competing actions, so different, too many call to actions. As I mentioned again, do not redirect people off your product page, make them stay there, make them select, the only way they can go through from the product page should be the cart page or some kind of offer page or stuff like that, but not like make them redirect to other pages in the store unless there are other product pages. What works very well for AOV especially is if you have like products that relate very well or products that can work together in bundles. That's the only case where you can actually make people redirect to other pages and have other clicks, but make it action focused, make it so that the end goal is to get people with the highest AOV possible, so get customers with the highest AOV possible in the cart page. Then poor offer presentation, explanation, as I mentioned before, and you need to hammer that again. You need to be very clear with your offer. Especially like when you have a very good one, that's obvious. You need to obviously make sure that it's explained very well. But even if you have a not so good offer or an average offer or a mediocre offer, if you make the point of explaining it well, of showcasing it well, and this is even more on the like branding, design, presentation side, if you make a good job of presenting it and showcasing it, then it can become also like a good offer to the eye of the customer. Weak pricing structure, so confusing numbers in this case, especially if you have subscription offers. Make sure every single number is laid out, make sure every single value is laid out. If you have complex offer running around with discounts, gifts, subscriptions, bundles, per unit pricing, stuff like that, make sure everything is super clear to avoid any confusion. And then missing interaction feedback, making selection harder. This will help you a lot with click-through rate. Trust me on that, I've tested it and it's super important. Then for works versus doesn't work, point number 4, we have product images. I actually made a video on this recently on my channel on how to make optimized product images for your image carousel on your product pages. But let's go through a few points here to make sure you understand what optimized images are. So optimized images are obviously benefit focused images. This is niche dependent. Obviously, if you're selling clothing or if you're selling supplement, you're going to have a different approach to this, but you can still have some benefits structured in the images you have on your product page. For supplements and for kind of pain problem focused products, this will be easier. Obviously for clothing or stuff like that, this will be a little bit harder. So in that case, you would focus on making the customer feel the lifestyle that they get from your brand or from your kind of style of clothing, your kind of the mode you're trying to go for. So that's very important in that case. But what's also very important is having a proper carousel structure. So you obviously have a main hero image, which is the most important one, and then you progressively educate the customer through your images, for example how-tos, or if you're selling nutrition, healthcare, stuff like that, ingredients, materials. If you're selling like clothing or stuff like that, size and scales, you can use comparisons. This works for basically every niche for your product in your images. This also works very well, and we've tested that. You can use social proof images, so UGC and text reviews in your images. That also works super well. What doesn't work with image carousels usually is poor product shots only, especially if it's a pain problem related product. You're missing on a very good opportunity here to get more conversions, to get more people through your pages. Using stock photos, another one. Just try to have your images for your product, for what you're selling. A poor gallery structure and heavy media causing slow loading. This is one of the main reasons why PDPs are some of the slowest page on your store, because you have just a lot of images loading, and if they're heavy, they will cause you to slow a lot down your product pages especially. So try to have optimized media for that to make sure pages load in a consistent time. Try to stay under 2 seconds if possible. Even 3 seconds is good. Anything above that is just too much in this day and age, so try to stay under 2 seconds for the best chance at getting like the highest conversion rate and stuff like that. Then for works versus doesn't work, point number 5, which is the last point we have here, then we're going to look at some brand examples. What works here is placement is super important, and positioning. Placement and positioning for social proof are the 2 most important things. About placement, you need to have some kind of summary above the fold. This is what I mentioned when we were talking about point number 1 in the above the fold. A full single review under the call to action. We've tested this actually with multiple brands, and it works super well. It just gets people through with clicking that call to action, that add to cart. And having also social proof in your product images, you can leverage also those to have some more social proof in there. And then the positioning is also super important with social proof. It's obviously very important with copy, as we mentioned before, but it's also super important with social proof. And if you do it right, you'll get much more people through with the purchase decision. So you need to use relevant social proof when mentioning mechanisms or benefits of your products. And if it's targeted to the specific mechanism or benefit, you sell people even more on that specific benefit or that specific mechanism that's unique to your product. So use that when you can. Social validation, obviously press, magazines, or you have endorsements. Those obviously work very well. And then UGC lifestyle for some niches and for some brands. Obviously that is the like bread and butter. You need to have that as your social proof for kind of people living your lifestyle, living the lifestyle that your brand makes you feel or provides. So that's also very important. And what doesn't work is overdoing it. So for example, something that I hate on like brands that doing it, or brands that have this kind of stuff on their PDPs, like live purchase notifications. Just they look scammy. I don't trust them. I never saw one of those live purchase notifications and thought, oh wow, there's someone buying right now. What I always thought is that this site looks scammy, stuff like that. So do not overdo it with social proof, definitely with stuff like this. And just generic trust pages that everyone just copies and pastes online from like on whatever random place they find on their store. Just try not to do that. If you're going to have trust pages and stuff like that, make something custom for yourself. It's not super hard to do. You can just open up Figma and do something that looks nice and it's branded. Just don't copy stuff around online just to have it there on your store. It doesn't really make any sense. Then these are the main 5 we're going to look at for what works versus doesn't work on PDPs. Let's look at some real examples here actually, and I have a few different niches here, and some of these brands I actually already reviewed on my channel before. So for example, Ghostbed is one of the ones I already looked at, definitely on my channel before. I have a full video breakdown on their PDP strategy. So especially if you sell high AOV products and you have a very high AOV, definitely go look at that breakdown of their PDP, which is because it's some masterclass on how to sell especially high AOV products, but in general for their cross-sell and upsell strategy on the product page. I'll leave the video up right in the cards on YouTube, so you can go also check that out. Here's their above the fold. As you can see, very good, super good above the fold. They have very good imagery here. A perfect carousel. They have the main image which showcases the product extremely well. As you can see here, the green badge they have on their main hero image is a piece of social proof and social validation. If you can look at them from here, maybe they're a little bit small, but you can kind of see that they're focusing on the benefits of the product. They are driving the point in through their images. They have more trust pages here and stuff like that. They have pricing. They have more social proof. The pricing is clear. As you can see here, this is just above the fold, so I didn't go under, but they also have all of the upsells, they're priced clearly. All of their bundles are priced clearly. Or if you go for installments, all of those are priced clearly. Everything is super clear, super easy to understand. It just flows easily. As you can see, features, they have that in the bullet points fashion I was mentioning before, to not waste too much time. They also structured it in accordions and stuff like that, so you can, without having a wall of text there, they can show you more pieces of information without wasting too much space. And as you can see, also the copy they're using for their features. I know this, they are mentioning features here. They're anchoring and connecting every single feature to something you can experience from that feature. So if you read, for example, the first point, 13 inches height, 7 layers of cooling and
comfort. So they're anchoring the feature of having the height and those 7 layers to comfort. And then, for example, again, contouring gel, memory foam, ghost bounce foam for a spring-like feel. So they always make you feel something. They always attach a sensation or a feeling to the features they have on the page. 7.5 inches high density core for support and durability. Again, anchoring support and durability to that feature. So try to always attach some kind of feeling or emotion to the features you have. So this from Ghostbed, very, very good example of an excellent product page. Second one we have here is one from Real Superfoods. So if you're in the supplements, nutrition, healthcare side of things, this also very excellent, very, very good product page. They have 2 types of social proof, as I mentioned before. They have the Trustpilot reviews here, and then they have Forbes and Dragon's Den on the bottom. So 2 types of social validation here. A few USPs above the fold. As you can see, they're not wasting space, and they're actually doing it very, very well. In this case, a very smart idea. They're not wasting here space on the right, and they're dedicating all of that space to the buy box and to the add to cart, which is what matters 100% above the fold. Then they're dedicating some space in the carousel to have some USPs, some features, some benefits of their products. So very smart idea by them here of how to utilize space above the fold. Above the fold is small, there's not a lot of space, you need to utilize it as best as possible. And then as you can see, also the buy box super optimized. They're explaining the offer perfectly in a bullet points fashion. They're explaining the savings, everything you get, every single discount. The pricing is repeated multiple times throughout the buy box, and it's super, super clear to understand, clear to read, and it's very well organized. I like this one a lot by Real. The next one is by Simple Modern. This is their classic Tumblr PDP, another very well structured PDP. As you can see, multiple pieces of social proof. They're using the main hero image to showcase the product, and then the other images, as lifestyle images. You can see here a person with the tumbler to showcase the sizes and the scale. This is also a point I mentioned before in the product imagery. So using the carousel super well. They have the variation selector, super easy to select from. It's very interactive, as you can see. So for the size, they have 3 images with 3 different size tumblers, and you can understand immediately what's the difference between the variants. Also, the colors are structured very well, and in this case, for example, they're doing a very good job of filtering the variants immediately. So as you can see, they have a lot of colors available for the tumblers, and besides even these colors, they have 9 more. And what they are doing right here is just not throwing those 9 more colors there for people to look at immediately and get decision paralysis. They are showcasing the main ones. So what you would do here is showcasing the best selling ones, the best selling colors. And then if people don't find here the color they want, they can click on 9 more. They know they have 9 more colors they want to go through if they don't like the ones available here, but immediately you just have those few selections that are filtered out immediately. So that's super good when you have a lot of variations that you need to filter. You need customers to filter through. Then as you can see, pricing is clear. They have guarantees near the call to action. They have few USPs near the call to action. And then as you can see here, we have 2 call to actions. And what I mentioned before is that if you're going to have multiple call to actions above the fold, and make it so it's for your benefit and also for the benefit of the customer. Here, their secondary call to action is customize your tumblers for $10 additional. So as you can see, with this specific call to action, they're still getting people through to their add to cart, and to click add to cart, but they're getting it with a higher AOV. So if you're going to have more than 1 call to actions, then do it in this fashion. It's super good for your average order value. The last example we have here for clothing is from True Classic. So here is their staple 6-pack. As you can see, massive numbers of reviews there, almost 54,000 reviews. They have the bundling figured out here, super good for AOV also. So you can choose from created packs. You can build your own pack, and you can have singles if you want to buy just a single fee. The reason this is super good is that I think before they had it separated in 3 different SKUs, so you had to go like through the 3 different product pages. If, for example, you wanted the created packs or to build your pack, or if you wanted single teas, they had 3 different like places to go for that. Now they've put together everything in one single PDP, and this is just very, very well curated, and it allows you to get everything you want from one single point without distracting customers with many different clicks and links. And as I mentioned this multiple times, the more people have to click through and the more pages they have to get through, the less the purchase is likely. So very good way of structuring their page here. Also with the variant selection, as you can see, very good interaction feedback. They have the size guide to help people through with their decisions. So Again, this is from True Classic, very, very good example of how to structure a PDP. And these are obviously brands that test all of these changes a lot. So if you want to get like in the same level of these as these massive brands, you obviously need to split test the changes and find what works for your traffic, for your audience, and for your brand. So these are just my few favorite examples of showcasing these points. But then how do you implement and actually find the key sections to test for your brand's PDP? I have a full 1 hour guide on this, so we're just going through the points quickly here, but you can go look at my 1 hour guide. I'll leave also that in my cards on the top right, so you can go look at that full 1 hour guide, and you'll see the full step-by-step process we've used to generate million additional revenue for the brands we've worked with. First point, obviously research, heat mapping, user sessions recordings. You can look at that for information. You need to have a metrics baseline, survey responses, support tickets. Customers can tell you immediately what's wrong and what needs to be split tested. From that, review analysis to understand like the messaging and the copy your customers are using to describe the experience of using your products. And then emails, and on the back end you can also get a lot of information from your customers to understand what to split test and what to tackle first. Prioritization, obviously you need to tackle first what gets the most traffic volume, because that's where you're spending the most of your ad dollars. So prioritize obviously first the split test that attack that traffic volume. Direct bottom line impact, so offer targeting presentation. Obviously you're going to test first what's going to impact the most your bottom line. And obviously on the PDP, above the fold, above all, no pun intended, above the fold, as I mentioned before, is what gets 100% of the traffic and 100% of the eyes. So you need to start from that first, and then you would start from the tests that have the highest traffic volume, the highest direct bottom line impact, and then also the lowest effort to implement and actually go through. That would entail obviously having a setup for running the tests. So this depends on obviously how you're running your store. You need to have an A/B testing tool for your use case. I suggest Intelligence for Shopify, and I have a link for that. You can get a discount for Intelligence if you want to run A/B tests on your Shopify store. I'll leave the link down in the description. Convert.com for any other use case, even Shopify. If you're comfortable with that, it's also a super good option. And you have to check your testing samples you need for statistical significance. You don't have to do this by hand. Most A/B testing tool will tell you that by default, but if you want to have an idea of roughly how much traffic you need from your traffic to go through the test to make it significant, then you can use calculators you find online for that purpose, because you need to make sure that every test you run is actually significant and has data you can trust and make decisions. And then you need to keep the optimization pipeline running, so feed data from both winners, losers back into the pipeline for new tests. And then while tests are running, make new hypotheses, make new tests, and build new things from your pipeline. I obviously went through that quickly. I have full 1 hour CRO guide on my channel. I left that in the top right card, so you can go look at that. So we've just gone through the 5 main things I think are super important to test and to optimize on your product page for your brand. We've done this for countless 7 and 8 figure brands, and we've looked at hundreds of pages and tested countless hypotheses and split tests on clients' e-commerce stores. If you want the same for your brand, I'm offering a free 30-minute audit on discovery calls for brands that go on them. So if you want to get on a discovery call with me and get your free 30-minute audit, you can check that out in the second link in the description. Book your call and we can talk soon.